I sought out to make the ultimate backlit LED invisible chessboard, fully magnetic with custom resin pieces that stow neatly inside. I'd like to take you on a journey of how I built this board from concept to completion and all the challenges I faced along the way. At the core of this design is an acrylic panel topped with oak veneer. By etching the oak, I create a line that allows the LED to shine through when the board is on. Let's first get started by cutting the acrylic top. Now that I have the top face complete, I flip it over and CNC the bottom part for the magnets to actually recess into, so the actual pieces don't slide around too much. I actually ran into my first issue here. It is not aligned properly because I didn't align my CNC good enough, so I actually had to manually route these out and redo this. I'm gonna fix these holes. Fun fact, I used a metric ton of magnets in this project. Comment below with your best guess on how many magnets are in this chessboard. I found free 3D models for these modern chess pieces, and best of all, they're easy to mold without any overhangs. Link in the description if you want to download them. Now, I'm not much of a fan of SLA printing, but for mold making, it is superior. It leaves a perfect surface finish, so you don't have to clean it up as much, and you get a nice mold. I'm just using a can of Rust-Oleum gloss. I should have used high gloss in the situation, but this is all I had. Powering this device is a 12-volt power pack I got on Amazon. I'm just gonna splice it up and put the wires on. So I wanted this thing looking spiffy, so I opted for some addressable RGB lights. They are actually controllable by each LED to make it just look that much better. The brains behind this is the ESP32 running on the open source program WLED. I will leave a link in the description for documentation on that. It's a pretty straightforward interface that looks incredible, honestly. To make the chessboard easily transportable and so you can hold it, I made 2 handles and then I will spray paint them and put them on either side of the chessboard. Pro tip for sanding PLA, I use super glue and it dries fast and easily sandable. Next up, I CNC the wood panels. You would see that, but I lost the footage somehow, so there you go. To bond the acrylic to the plywood, I'm using a 2-part epoxy, which should hold quite well. I actually sanded the acrylic down too to give it that extra bite. And here I am contemplating my life choices. And then you can see here I'm layering the next part of the plywood on top, and I'm gonna secure that down with some brad nails. I'm fitting the handles in just to get the accurate placement. This copper foil is for the button placement on the outside of the board that will be underneath the veneer, but actually still trigger. So now I need to connect the left side of the board to the right side of the board, the two LED strips, and I routed out a channel out of the plywood that will fit the wire. Then I hook my cable up and then I should be good to go. Now that I'm all wired up, you can see the touch function working as I expected. And that right there was the top and final board. I need to now turn to the actual urethane molds to make the chess pieces. I do that with an acrylic bottom, and the sides are just a transparent sheet that is flexible. For the silicone, I'm using a smooth-on product. It works pretty well for me. I just need to calculate the area, or I'm sorry, the volume, and mix a batch up. A tip to mixing is a big mixing stick and a lot of muscle. For most silicone molds, you really don't need to vacuum degas, but I had it, so I just went ahead and did it anyway. Now, as you can see, the tops of these are looking a little wonky, and yeah, that turned out not so great. I almost had a spill, and it just did not turn out very well, but it will still work. Now, when this project started, I wanted to do a foliage theme, kind of like a bark side and a greenery side, but the bark just did not turn out the way I wanted to, so I just scrapped that idea. Instead, I'm going to do a touch of black and a touch of white for both sides. Another pro tip for mixing small batches using pigment, it's really hard to say consistent pigment. So I'd recommend pre-mixing a huge batch. That way you can have multiple batches of the same color.
Use this big thing to get on.
So this big old thing is the pressure pot, and I am using this to get every single bubble out of the resin as good as possible. Depending on what type of resins you use and how long they cure for, you may not need to do this, but I err on the safe side and just go ahead and use it. As that's curing, we'll move on to the next thing. Now I'm rounding out the back panel that will house the stowed chess pieces and a few other things. This is out of HDPE and cuts really nicely on my CNC. Now I have a battery voltage indicator, and I wanted to make a diffused film over it. Well, I had hoped to. Anyway, I tried this and you'll see in the end how it looked. So we're getting closer to applying the veneer on the sides. I just had to sand everything smooth and put the handles in, and then we should be ready to go. But actually first we will need to mark out the indication marks of where our electronics are going to go, so we can actually hit those marks, and you'll see later. Now finally, we're edge banding. We're using 2-inch oak red oak edge banding. This is actually what I was talking about for the electronics, just the indication. These are going to be buttons that are inset in the oak, and I have to route them out on my CNC. So I'm just measuring them up, and then we'll go ahead and cut them. And to cut these, I'm using a small engraving bit on my CNC. I'm using my cry cut to cut out some felt pads for various parts of this build, but next we're going to work on the stowable carrier for the chest pieces. These parts are ABS plastic, and the magnets will be embedded into the recesses, and then a felt pad will go right on top to secure everything down. To make the underside of the board nice and clean looking, I'm going to put felt around the inside of each recess for the chest pieces and some of the accessories to make this just look that much better. And then circling back to the back panel that we cut on the CNC, we'll go ahead and mount that now that the felt is installed. So for the charging indicator as is, it looks a little bad, so I'm just going to put this felt pad on there to make it look nicer. And then once the buttons were done printing, I just placed them on with some super glue and sanded them down. Following the same theme, I printed these as well in PLA, and then I just epoxied them down, and they are actually a living hinge style print that I came up with, and hopefully it does just fine. Then I just popped on some rubber feet. And then finally, we're getting close to staining, so I'm just gonna sand the sides down and the top face. And then for finishing, I'm gonna use Natural One Coat, which is my go-to nowadays. I feel like it's cheaper than competitors. It actually smells better, and it just, the packaging is so much better. I'm really happy with this product so far. And then I used just a walnut stain. As that's drying, let's move back to the stowable pieces, and we'll finish up the chest pieces here. For the bottoms of the chest pieces, I have a little bit of flare, a brass piece that I'll go ahead and tumble to make it look a little better. Now that the resin has cured on the pieces, we'll go ahead and remove them. I am not very happy with how the mold turned out. There was a bit of imperfections, but it worked out in the end. Definitely some room for improvement though. Not what we're going for, so I think I doubled, I was gonna say part A of the mixture. So now that I have the pieces, the bottom plates, and the magnets, I can go ahead and assemble everything. First, I need to make the bottom face flush, and I'll go ahead and make a jig, sanding jig, just to make everything nice and flush to mount the actual washer on. And I just used some super glue, and I just positioned everything as good as possible and set the magnet in, and then at the end, I just put a felt pad on top. So I'll go ahead and do that with all 32 pieces, and then we should be good to go. And now we're coming down to the home stretch where we put all the pieces into the stowable containers and some of the accessories, and then we are ready to rock and roll. Well, it's big and not exactly invisible, but I aimed for a chessboard that doesn't look like one when it's off. I think I got close, but the cutouts on top are just too pronounced. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and ideas for the next time maybe. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.